Hi, it's Elle here, and today I am going to be discussing the results of my remote viewing of a small rock, which from the results of the RV turned out to be ship debris, and the rock was in the possession of Sergeant Clifford Stone, who had been some of the recoveries of crash sites and other unusual locations for supposed UFO activity and contact with ETs. So I have never officially touched the small rock. I haven't been in its presence. So this was a remote viewing that I had done, totally no access to the rock at all. So it's remote and never come in person with the rock itself. So the subject of the remote viewing was a small rock that was revealed to be a dense piece of ship debris. The piece of ship debris seems to be buzzing with magnetic energy. It is made up of 10% strontium composition, which gives the debris the dense magnetic fields. The remote viewing had been done on November 21st, 2019, and these are the RV notes on the ship debris in possession of Sergeant Clifford Stone for the small rock. So the results of the RV session are as follows. Cruiser ship is made up of dense metal alloys. The ship anti-gravity propulsion engines are highly magnetic. There are field propulsion systems on the back of the ship. Vessel is a large cruiser ship with a lot of cargo on board, the stealth ship. This is also a stealth ship. Ship force fields had been destabilized. That is partially what caused the ship to explode and blow up. There was sabotage involved of the warp fields in engineering. That is why the cruiser ship exploded above low Earth orbit. Cruiser ship has high gravity propulsion systems in order to be able to travel through hyperspace velocities and potentially through null space. That is the AOL that comes up in the RV session, that it could travel potentially through null space. The ship itself was dark blue and gray in color. The cruiser ship was elongated with large proportions. It had many viewing port type windows on the craft. There had been 2,040 crew on board the cruiser vessel, with some of the crew members having military training. The AOL impressions are that the crew was humanoid in appearance. The engineering bridge on the cruiser ship had 2 warp drive nacelles. The cruiser ship was designed for deep space journeys. This cruiser ship had 2 warp bubble force fields that were protecting it at all times while traveling out in space. So that is the results of my remote viewing on the small rock that, from my results, is ship debris, part of the ship debris that had exploded in low Earth orbit and scattered on Earth, and Sergeant Clifford Stone had picked up one of those debris, apparently on a crash site, what looked like to be a crash site, from what I understand later on after doing the remote viewing. So this is what the cruiser ship looks like. It's very elongated. It has a lot of the viewing ports or type windows on it. It has the field propulsion systems at the back. It is designed to carry a lot of cargo on board. It's also a stealth ship. It could hold a large crew complement. So this vessel is definitely designed for long distance travel in our outer space and for long periods to be in outer space without needing to land on planets, from what I was getting from the remote viewing data from my RV session. And it's made out of very dense alloy materials for the ship itself. So when it exploded, the ship debris itself is still very dense, and it has like these weird striations on one of the small rocks that is the ship debris itself. So it has very dense magnetic fields, and when I was probing the ship debris rock, it felt like it was buzzing. The impression that I got is that it was buzzing, and it's made out of 10% strontium in composition. That's what gives it its denseness. So the ship itself was big, and it could carry a lot of crew, and there was sabotage on board the ship, and some of the crew were military trained and had the training. So the sabotage could have had something to do with some of the crew in the military training, but that's just my supposition. And this happened a long time ago, so it's not a recent crash as well. I was picking up that this was a long time ago. So it's not recent crash. It's not new. It had been on Earth for a while. This is what the cruiser ship looks like when it has the 2 warp bubble force fields surrounding it, and it's protecting it at all times when it's traveling in space. So as you can see, it's very big. There's a lot of room on this ship, and it is designed for deep space journeys. And you can see that in the middle of the ship is the engineering bridge with the warp drive nacelle at the top of the ship and the bottom of the ship and the engineering. And engineering only is mainly the top of the ship. The other nacelle, warp drive nacelle, is at the bottom of the ship. So it's not completely in engineering. And again, the ship was made out of dense alloys. And I'm thinking part of that is because it's very big. And so since it's designed for deep space journeys, it needed to have reinforced hull for that specific purpose. And they weren't stopping at planets to refuel or anything, not often, because they had a large reserve in the warp drive nacelles for the energy to power the ship, so they didn't need a lot of fuel or resources to power the ship. So it was designed for long voyages. That's what I got from the RV data as well. And that they were traveling potentially in null space, and that's an AOL, which I think is kind of interesting. That's why I decided to include it in the RV notes. And they were traveling at high hyperspace velocities in hyperspace, so that tells me that the anti-gravity propulsion systems were advanced on this ship from the RV data that I was picking up on.